Today, we're going to explore two really powerful but totally different codes that people use to store and share what they know. One of them powers our entire digital world, and the other, well, it's been around for over 50,000 years.
So let's start with something you do every day. Have you ever actually wondered when you type a message on your phone or computer how it understands what you're writing? Well, it all comes down to a kind of hidden code.
You see, computers don't actually get what letters are. They only speak one language, and that language is numbers. So, for example, to a computer, the letter A is really just the number 65. And it's not just A. Every single letter, number, and symbol you can think of has its own unique code number. This whole process has a name. It's called character encoding. The easiest way to think about it is like a huge digital dictionary. When you type a letter, the computer looks it up in this dictionary, finds the number it's matched with, and then stores that number. And of course, when it needs to put that letter back on the screen for you to read, it just does the whole thing in reverse.
Now, one of the very first big code books for computers was called ASCII. It was developed way back in the 1960s, and it basically assigned numbers to all the English letters, numbers, and the most common symbols. For years, this was the standard for how computers handled text.
But ASCII had a big limitation. It was really only built for English. As computers became a global thing, we obviously needed a much, much bigger codebook. And that's where Unicode comes in. It's the universal system we all use today, and it's so big it covers pretty much every language you can imagine. And yep, every single emoji you've ever sent.
Okay, so that's the code running behind all our screens. But I want you to just pause for a second and think a bit bigger. For nearly all of human history, we didn't have any of this digital stuff. So how on earth did people store huge amounts of really important information for tens of thousands of years?
And this question brings us to a completely different way of knowing. This quote, which comes from research into Aboriginal Australian traditions, introduces a pretty radical idea. It asks us to consider, what if memory isn't just something that's inside our heads? What if it's also stored externally, out in the world around us? So let's try to shift our thinking here. Instead of picturing information stored on a computer server, imagine if it was stored in the land itself. In Aboriginal knowledge systems, the environment is seen as a kind of living library, where knowledge is kept safe in stories, in songs, and in the connections between people and the places they live.
So how does a living library actually work? Well, it's built on a few really core ideas. Let's break it down and look at three of the most important ones: place, relationship, and story and symbol. Okay, first up is place. In this system, information isn't just floating around in the abstract, it's physically connected to specific spots in the landscape. So a certain rock, or a bend in a river, or a grove of trees, it isn't just scenery, it's a marker for a piece of knowledge, almost like a chapter in a book that you can actually walk up to and visit. Next is relationship. Instead of just focusing on individual, separate things, this way of knowing is all about the connections between them. A good way to picture it is like a spider's web. True understanding doesn't come from looking at one strand, but from seeing how everything, the people, the animals, the land, the stars, is all connected and influences everything else. And finally, we have story and symbol. Knowledge is carefully passed down from one generation to the next using powerful stories, a process sometimes called yarning, and through really meaningful visual symbols. These stories and symbols work like mental shortcuts, helping people to remember very complex information.
And this is a brilliant example of how powerful a simple symbol can be. In his book, Sand Talk, Tyson Yunpapaporta explains how a symbol like this, the one we recognize as the copyright symbol, can be used to show a person sitting all by themselves, kind of enclosed and isolated. But then, look at this. By simply moving the C outside the circle, the meaning completely flips. Now it represents a person who is connected to their community and to their world. It's such a simple but powerful visual way to show how important relationships are in this way of seeing the world. So what we have are these two really powerful codes for storing information. One is digital, and the other is based in the land. And as you can probably guess, they each come from completely different ways of understanding the world and our role in it. This table really helps to show some of those key differences. An indigenous worldview is often centered on a deep spiritual connection to everything. It sees the world as completely interrelated, and it accepts that there can be many different truths.
On the other hand, a more Western worldview tends to be more scientific, often searching for one single provable truth, and it likes to organize knowledge into separate categories or boxes. So, why does any of this matter for us right now? Well, this quote really brings it all home. We live in what some people call the age of distraction, where our screens are constantly pulling our attention in a million different directions. And in a world like that, this ancient idea of knowledge being connected to place and to relationships starts to feel more important than ever. So, to wrap it up, we've looked at two very different kinds of codes. One system stores information inside computers, using numbers and logic. The other system stores it out in the world around us, in the land, in our relationships with each other, and within our communities. And that really leaves us with one final question to think about. In our world, which is absolutely overflowing with digital information, what can we learn and what can we gain from paying a little more attention to the knowledge that isn't on a screen, but is all around us, just waiting to be read, in the world itself?